Well this year went and whether you guys made progress.
Probably went about a plane ride home from our last game. Delayed 2 hours and got here at like 9 in the morning. That was probably typical and summed up the year for us. I thought we started off well. I thought we had a real good start and solid. Some games we maybe just didn't quite have enough yet, like maybe the Boston game at home here and that. But I thought, going into Vegas and winning, going into Toronto and winning in overtime against Toronto here, I thought at the beginning of the year, with a little bit of a lesser experienced team than those teams, I thought that was a really good start. And then, obviously losing Taylor Hall really hurt, and then the flux of injuries that mounted up all kind of at the same time are cumulative. I don't think we just had enough, in our organization yet to sustain that. And then you got players playing in the wrong roles, and lots of maybe players coming up a little bit too early. And it's not an excuse; it's just what we had to deal with. And I think it got us off track a little bit, and we just didn't have enough to maintain that the way we started. I think at the end there was some signs of us kind of getting back to that. But to me, it wasn't a disappointing year overall. For me, I think I see a lot of growth with our young players, and then the play of Peter was incredible, I thought, all year for us. And then on top of that, you had Nick and Dickie doing a great job, coming in here new and then kind of emerging as leaders along with Seth and Murph that were here in the past, which I think it helped try and get us back onto respectability at the end. I think we had that really good spell with games with I think a win in Arizona and then a win here against them, and win against Anaheim, and a couple wins down the stretch against teams like Dallas. Were huge for us, and then a pretty solid win against Calgary too. So I think we can hold our heads high that we pushed hard to the end. But for me, I thought last year we had a lot of uphill swings with a little bit of a dip, and then uphill swings, where this year we had a little bit more of this. So to me, that consistency level, which I was looking for this year, was the most disappointing part.
It seemed like the truck logistics were kind of a theme all year.
Yeah, it was. Hopefully that's all out of the way, same as the injuries.
Wins and losses these last 2 years have probably been tough for you because you're competitive as a coach, right? When you talk to Kyle about really wanting to take that next step next year, how do you balance that there is still going to be some patience involved because there are a lot of prospects that aren't here, but really wanting to see a significant improvement in the team?
Yeah, no, I think we talked a little bit through the year about the amount of young guys we had this year, and some of them we had to once we got into the injury part. But knowing that we want to try and surround some of these young guys with some good veterans, and obviously Taylor's coming back, so we know we have that. It depends on what's available and who wants to sign here. And I think it's a great place to play. There's some really good young pieces coming in, and I think there's teams that we've played really well against that know that we try and play hard every night, and respect that, and aren't minding coming into more of a rebuild mold. But I think we still have to have some patience. I approach every game like I'm going to win it, and whether it's unrealistic or not. In my mind, I think we can win any night in this league, but can we do it every night is the question. Probably not right now with the way we ended, but that's where I want to get closer to next year. So how do we get there? I'm sure we're going to look at free agency and trying to get some good guys that can surround these guys and help them get to that next step and be a part of it at the same time. And I think Nick and Taylor Hall were at the short distance Taylor had at the beginning. I think they showed that they can be a big part of that. So that's really helpful, knowing that we have that going in next year. But I think we still have to add a little bit more. And I think management, we've discussed it and they agreed, and have told me that that's their plan. So it just depends what's out there and what can get done. So I think that's always a good plan. but you never know until you have that signed on the dotted line who you're going to have. And, it depends also on other teams, on who's available. Like there's teams going into the playoffs with a lot of high hopes, and there's always going to be teams that don't meet them. And then there's teams that blow up teams, change teams, traded for players that sometimes when they win, they sign them and keep them, and sometimes when they don't, they're free and available. So that just is going to see what that list is when we get to that in July.
Seth talked about, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Would you like to have some of your veteran players that you had this season to help with the free agent signings? Talk to other players?
Yeah, I don't know if you're allowed to do that, but they can do it. We can't do that. So, that's buddies talking to buddies, right? And, we really can't control that. I know Kyle goes through the agents, and that's the only proper channels you can do. Hopefully we've done enough to show them that we have a direction and a work ethic that would entice people to come. That's all I can do as a coach.
Seth talked about finding identity pieces, guys that accept the third or fourth line role, do the responsibility of an F1, and may not end up on the score sheet. Then we had Nick talk about guys that bring juice to the lineup. It seems like, like a Blackwell did that to you, but there wasn't enough of that. Is that the type of player you guys need to identify to as you look?
Yeah, I think there's some of that, and I think there's some high-level skill too that you have to look at to surround guys like, Connor and Nazar coming in, guys that can play at a high level of skill, but guys that have some veteran repetition of that, like some seniority in that department that they can come in and help. We want to have a good work ethic. I love workers. But you also have to have some talent to go along with that, and have a good balance in that. So I think we're probably going to look for both.
As a coach, you obviously understand the rebuilding phase. Did you find yourself wrestling last year, this year, when you're holding guys accountable, like just giving the young players a leash to make mistakes, knowing where they're at in the rebuild versus like when to pick the spot to maybe sit them for a shift or two?
Yeah, and it was, that was probably harder to do this year because of our injury situation, and we were just trying to compete and survive at certain times this year. But that's the way it's got to be, and I think that's the only way that you can coach and learn, and that's why hockey is the best sport in the world for a team sport. It's the ultimate team sport, and it's always been known for that. And I think that goes along with the accountability, and not just from coaches, but from the inner flux within themselves. And that's the best team that you have if you can have that. I think, going forward with that, we have to do that probably even more. And as we're building, we have to, demand more from the players and them themselves from each other, and them us. They have to hold us accountable too. I think this is good. We've had some conversations this year about practice. Maybe we do practice a little shorter but harder next year, and it gets us ready for. So every time we step on the ice, they're known it's going to be go. It's 100 miles an hour and it's competitive, and there's no easing into practice, because sometimes you start a game and subconsciously you're like, oh, I'm going to ease into the game, and it's 3-0. And we know how hard it is for a team like us that sometimes is challenged to score goals, to play from behind. That's a lot of energy. And even if you catch up, then maybe you fall off at the end. And, I thought we saw that this year a little bit. So I think for us to be ready to start every game and to continue that compete level through the game to the end of the game, I think we need that a little bit more in practice next year. And that's probably on the coaches to demand that a little more. But then it's on the players to complete that and execute it.
How comfortable are you with just giving it directly to Kyle Davis and saying, hey, I need some help next year. I need some talent going into this next season?
I think he addressed that to me. I think we've talked about it, but again, it's who's available. How can you get a deal done with the agent? There's other teams competing. I think there's older players in the league that have skill and know they're desirable. They probably want to win too. So sometimes it's maybe not the first stop here right now. 10 years ago probably was, but right now we're starting over again, and we got to make that step and stride that make it desirable for all these players to come here. And I think we've done some good things over the last 2 years, but we have to do more, and we have to get ready for that. So hopefully we can find some players that fit that mold that we're looking for and are willing to commit to here. And we're looking forward to it. We think it's a great place to play. It's a great organization to play for. And everybody's seen in the past how exciting a city this could be when you win. And we just want to try and get that opportunity to get back to that. So when that's going to be, I don't know. But it's not necessarily me pleading to Kyle for that. I think he realizes it and wants it just as much or more than me. And I just have to do my job and coach, and hopefully, the brand of the Chicago Blackhawks, and Kyle can do some sweet talking and bring some guys here.
But Howard and Curtis have played together so much this year with that third line. They kind of varied. Would you like to have more stability there? Is that Taylor Hall, or is that someone potentially you guys look at?
Well, I think Taylor fit there pretty well and did well with Connor at times, at the beginning, and both power play and 5-on-5. So that's definitely something to look at. I think obviously adding to that role on that top line, top six, I think that would be great for our organization to get to that. You never know where the young guys are going to be between now and the summer. It's a long summer, but that's a big step to really kind of hope for and hold your breath for. So I think I'm sure that's on the list for July, is to get someone to help in that area.
So I had to make the jump from college to NHL, not just here but around the league. Is the NCAA game, or college hockey game rather, proving to be a better developmental ground than it's been historically? And how does it compare to the AHL these days?
Compare it against the what?
AHL.
I don't think it's quite the same as the AHL. I think a lot of college players will still have to put some time in the AHL. I think it's a good stepping stone. But definitely, I think the college hockey it's been going uphill for years, I think. And I think part of that has been the progression of the U.S. development program, the USHL. They've become stronger as well, and they feed into that quite a bit. The guys that we've seen just this year alone with, just Frank at the end and Landon, they came in and played really well right out of college. And I think that's a real tribute to their organizations that they came from, or colleges that they came from. I don't think it's at the level of the American Hockey League. I think the Pro Hockey League, like some guys coming out of college or junior, that's probably a real eye opener. When they go to the American League, they think it's going to be, an easier league. It's a hard league, and they have more of a schedule like ours as well. And I think when you look at, we saw the guys come out and play a couple weeks at the end of the year, or Frank a week, but going from 30-some games to 80-some games, and then you add exhibition and hopefully playoffs, that's over 100-some games. That's way more than double. There's a big difference. So I think junior play about 70 games, and then you go to the AHL, which you're playing close to 80, 82. I think they're 78 or whatever they are now. And the same type of travel schedule. I think that's the closest thing you'll ever get. And you're getting guys that are older. And then you get some older veteran guys from the NHL that are the captains down there that can really help those guys. So there's, to me, that's probably the top developmental league that there is the American Hockey League. But college and junior, every year it seems like they're coming out more skilled and bigger. Like look at Vlasic and guys like that coming out, like they're huge. And they can skate and play. So I don't know what's in the milk these days or whatever, but it seems like the athletes are getting bigger, stronger, faster, and more skilled. And but they still need a place to hone that a little bit.
Vlasic said the big turning point for him was that game in Toronto, the first road trip, where he felt like, okay, I'm a pretty good player. Did you see that too, where his confidence after that game versus where he was at?
Yeah, I don't know if I can pinpoint it like he can. Like, the players know themselves the best, but I pretty much noticed it all year. It was incredible from day one, I thought, what he accomplished this year. And being in a top pairing role with Seth, I think they really kind of complement each other well, and with their range, with their reach, I think they really defended well. But both of them at times can get up the ice and add into the offense. I know Vlasy was a little frustrated. He probably didn't get more finish on his offense, but that'll come. I thought he started shooting the puck better at the end of the year, and he's going to get one of those shorthanded breakaways one of these times. But I think with the composure that he played with, and just the skating ability laterally, and he just stole pucks all over the place and turned them into line rushes for. It was incredible to see, and he's just 22. As he like right now, he's just going to start to fill out because he's so long and rangy. If he keeps that, skating and lateral skating ability and mobility, and puts on another 10, 15 pounds of solid muscle and strength, he's going to be a hard man to play against for sure.
What was your biggest takeaway from coaching Bedard all year?
I think, he's pretty calm, quiet, and monotone, but, inner competitive. He's inner competitive. And we talked about it in his exit meeting sometimes, and it was the same as Seth, same as everybody. As good as you are, as skilled as you are, sometimes you're trying to do too much on your own. It's all good intention because you're frustrated the team can't score. We want to do something extra here. Sometimes it just puts you and the team in a tough spot and makes it worse. I think just doing what's in your wheelhouse with him, he's obviously an offensive guy, but knowing the game, and I think he took strides this year at times to understand the game, and I mentioned it a few times, like dumping the puck in and from the neutral zone when we have a 1-goal lead in the third period and getting a good change. I think he grew in that area where he didn't have to in junior. So I think he was firstly exposed to it this year. And even in the World Juniors, I think they were such a good team, and he had such a good tournament that he wasn't in those situations where this year, he learned probably a lot away from the puck or without the puck this year than he probably ever has. So that's something that I think he'll take away from this year, and that's what we kind of take away from that with him. And then understanding maybe the situation, trying to do a little too much at the wrong time is maybe not helpful in this league. And, cut your loss short and get off the ice. Do what you can, get off the ice, get your rest, and go back out and try and do it again. And if you can do that all game long, I think that's more important to help the team than it is to stay out a little extra and do something a little extra by yourself when no one else knows what's going on, and putting yourself in a little bit of a hot water out on the ice or your team. So I think he's starting to understand that as well. And that's the first time like he's ever been exposed to it. So it's understandable.
Is that a tough conversation to have where he's so used to playing that?
No, I think earlier in the year he'd be like, yeah, but I could make that play. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you can. But, I don't know if the other 4 guys in the ice understand that you're doing that. And if you don't make that play and you're exhausted, you can't get back and defend. So, he takes it in and understands that. And he's, he has good conversations about it. So he doesn't just like slam the stick and slam the door and, like a bratty teenager. He has good conversations, and I think there's a lot to learn when you're 18, no matter how good you are, and there'll still be lots to learn when you're 19 next year, and but that's the league. It's the best league in the world. If there was nothing for him to learn here, it'd be boring.
Pure skill-wise, was there a moment with Bedard where he really impressed you?
I think that game in Tampa was very impressive, and I think that's the style of game that we want him to play. He was aggressive on the forecheck, aggressive on the back check, stole pucks, made things happen, had 2 goals in the game, probably first star if I can remember, and impressive. And then go out and do it the next night again against Florida. I think that's something that if we can consistently see in his game, it's up and down the ice with pace, stealing pucks, making plays happen at a high pace. Because, anytime you slow things down in this league, teams are too good, especially this time of the year. They back check hard. You got teams like Dallas and LA that are big and they have good stick skills. There's no stopping at the blue line, slow lob backhand passes through the middle. They're going to be going the other way. and then you're standing still, you can't catch them. So when you're skating this way and you're skating that way, I think that's the way to go. And I think that game, if you look back at that game in Tampa, if we could bottle that and get them to watch it, and this is how we want you to play every game. You're probably not going to play 82 games exactly like that, but how you want to model yourself, and our whole team, it should be modeled like that. And I think that's the kind of the recipe that we're looking for going forward.
When he's really on his team, is he as good a pickpocket or is it like
Yeah, I don't know. There's probably lots of guys that are really good at, like Mark Stone's not in the league, but he's the best guy that steals pucks and makes plays every year by a landslide. But there's guys that are really strong on their stick. I think he's elusive that way, and sneaky. When he made that kind of snake bite stick check on Kucherov to start that goal in the, I want to say it was, I don't know what period it was in Tampa. It might have been the first period. That was like really explosive, surprising, and it was against probably the top scorer in the NHL this year. That doesn't happen to him very often. So that's probably one of the most impressive things that we saw this year. It wasn't actually the goal, which he did score after that. It was how he got the puck back, and that's how we want him and our whole team to play.
Some of the veterans were talking earlier, and they were a lot more candid than they've probably been all season. Did you get some of that in the exit interviews where guys were getting things off their chest about what their team needs and what they're not getting?
Yeah, a little bit. And I talked to guys about practice, and I think we had one practice near the end of the year where we sent guys out if they wanted with free ice to work on skills on their own with assistant coaches for 20 minutes, and then we came back out after everybody and had a 30-minute hard practice. And I think guys want to do that more. They want to practice harder, more competitive, more structure. If we don't do it right, blow the whistle, more accountability, and stop things, but maybe at a shorter period of time. And that's where I agree. And I think the coaching staff could have maybe identified that and done it a little better earlier. But with our year we were trying to kind of manage and get through, and having new players every week for a while, we were just trying to get everybody on board with the right system. So I think we can work with that and work with the players going forward and have that recipe, because I think it'll be, really imperative for us to practice hard next year so we play every game hard. Other than that, I think the guys always, same thing as last year, they always want to hear and be accountable for, their mistakes. And they always say that now. In the heat of the moment, they don't always want to hear it sometimes, but and that's fine. I think that's part of a coach's job to tell them whether they want to hear it or not. And I think there's times where you have to know the personality as well. Is that going to rev them up more? Is that going to distract them more for the rest of the game? Or do I let that settle for a little bit and then talk to them? I think you handle everybody differently in that respect. So, and then sometimes you have to be kind of consoling to the team when you go through a rough patch, and then there's some team you have to lay the hammer down on them, and it's a hard practice, it's a hard message, and it's not so fun. And I think we had a little bit of all of that this year. I think we talked about it. I think we just talked about situations more than people are unhappy with this or that at the end of this year. I think everybody was just frustrated with the way the year went, and some of it we couldn't control. With the personnel being out, or how we just maybe had a few games that we were a little inconsistent. And I think we all agreed on that going back to practice, if we can practice a little bit more harder and a little bit more accountability through those practices, I think that will transition to the games a little bit more consistently.